Imagine making an entire career on basically degrading and disrespecting and, in some ways, dehumanizing women. Myron Gaines has created a lot of headway for himself online in the relationship space. He has made lots of content, hundreds, maybe thousands of pieces of content regarding women, talking about women, and basically explaining how the inner dynamic of a relationship between a man and a woman works. Some quotes from Myron Gaines himself are that women deserve less, women are opportunistic lovers, and men and women are not equal. I wrote myself 3 different quotes. I think that these 3 quotes summarize his opinion on women and relationships relatively well. One comment that I would like to add is that I believe men and women are definitely equal, but with a caveat. We are different. Just because we're different doesn't mean we're not equal. His mindset is to teach you all, especially anyone who's watching this, who is a single man, who's a divorced man, or even a married man, things that you should expect from your woman. The trad con and this entire situation with basically the inner workings of getting married, settling down, having children. Myron Gaines believes that as a man, given that we are the breadwinners in basically most relationships across the world, that we have superiority over women just because of that. Now, I don't necessarily know his full perspective in terms of like the Bible and his religious perspective, because I'm definitely a very spiritual person. I believe in God, I believe in the words of God, but I don't even want to speak about it from a religious or biblical perspective, even though in the biblical perspective, God made women, God made men, and women and men are clearly different by design. But let's put that completely to the side and let's basically make it seem like we're not even discussing anything regarding religion. Let's discuss the practicality of being in a relationship. When you're in a relationship with a woman, there's different situations that you can find yourself in, and there's different people that you can be attracted to. There are a small percentage of women who, yes, they do seek opportunity. They want a rich man. They want someone who will wine and dine them. They want the beautiful and nice expensive purse. And they want a car to be paid for. And they want a super big 10-bedroom house with a pool and a jacuzzi and blah, blah, blah. There are definitely women out there that exist of that nature. And there are men that exist who can provide those things. And when we listen to these kind of podcasts, we are listening to that one specific small little percentage of people being spoken about as if those are all people in the world and every single man and every single woman is supposed to be that way. Realistically speaking, most women are not gold digging, just money hungry, and materialistic people. If you've ever met a woman in your life, especially a regular woman that kind of like works and has some sort of education, they're most likely not like that. Just to give you a personal perspective, when I was getting married, I went on many, many dates with a lot of different types of women. And some women, I could say, were a little bit more materialistic than others. However, the majority of them, they just weren't a good fit for me because the personality didn't match at all. At least not with mine. And so I ended up getting married to my lovely wife, and we've been married for almost 4 years now. When I got married to her, I was basically in debt about $20,000. And I didn't have a house. I didn't have, I didn't own a car. I didn't have anything to my name. I didn't have any assets. My wife and girlfriend at the time, I guess you can say, she fell in love with me because of who I am, because I'm caring, I'm nurturing, I'm a great provider, and not necessarily only financially, even though in that situation I was in debt. Literally, my first year of being married, I was in debt $20,000. So there isn't this kind of concept in the real world that women only look at you for your pockets and what you could provide for them and what you can buy them. A relationship is a give and take. There is no world in which you as a man basically contribute nothing other than money and your woman contributes basically nothing other than physical affection and just cooking and cleaning and slaving away all day long. Most of the time, let's put something into perspective. Most of the time, these rich people, they can afford maids, they can afford chefs, they can afford landscapers, they can afford everything that they want. So the woman in this perspective doesn't even need to do any of that. There's a chef that can cook it up, there's a maid that can do the laundry and do all the other cleaning. So there is no such thing in these people's lives where the woman kind of needs to do that because they could just afford someone to just do it for them. Myron Gaines has this idea that the woman needs to be traditional, but the man doesn't need to be traditional. And his perspective is that because back in the day, men used to have multiple wives, that now, if you can afford it, you should be able to have multiple wives. And while I could agree that the world is free, and especially in America, you're free to do, I guess, whatever you want, even though I don't technically think in America you're allowed to actually marry more than one person. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I never really researched that. I didn't really ever care to because I personally don't want to marry more than one woman. I can barely handle my wife. Let's be quite honest. Women are tough to handle. And from my wife's perspective, men are tough to handle. We are different, but we are equal. Listen, at the end of the day, I am the breadwinner. I work. My wife stays home with the child. She takes care of him. And obviously, whenever my wife does work, and if she makes a couple of bucks, I don't expect for my wife to pay for the bills and do all this stuff. She does help out, though. If my wife makes money, that money will go towards groceries or towards something for the kid or something for the house. So it's still contributing to the house and the family as a whole. But I will never expect for her to just go out and pay the rent because ultimately, yes, I do believe that a man still has some specific roles that he needs to fulfill. Same thing with a woman. A woman is going to bring that nurturing and loving aspect to your home. For example, a man buys a house, a woman makes it a home. I'm sure many of us have heard this quote many, many times. The problem with his prescription for relationships is that it's unsustainable, especially for the average person. The average person is looking for a woman, and now when you listen to people like this, you basically expect for a woman to be your slave. And unfortunately, that's not necessarily how women function in the real world. When I come home from work, even though I pay for basically all the bills, if there needs to be something done at the house, like if my wife needs help to wash a few dishes, or there needs to be a couple things picked up off the floor, swept, just a mop or whatever the case may be, I will do it. I'm not going to do it every single day, and I'm not going to spoil her to that extent because at the end of the day, yes, there are some roles that we should fulfill, especially because I'm at work all day, she's at home all day. Most of the home stuff will be done. So, for example, if 95% of the home stuff is done and she's with the kid all day and the kid's cranky and whatever, and she's putting the kid down and he's taking a long time to go to sleep, like I'll wash the dishes, I'll ease her burden the same way that she'll ease my burden. And there's different ways that you ease each other's burdens. It's not only the woman is responsible for XYZ, the man is responsible for ABC, and that's how we live our lives forever. Traditional roles in relationships exist. I'm not here to tell you that they don't exist, especially if we're going to be realistic in our expectations of real relationships. Women are definitely just more emotional than men. Women have more care and love, and they deal with things from a very emotive place. Whereas men deal with things on a more psychological level, they think things through a little bit more. However, that doesn't mean that there are no women that exist that don't think more logically. And it doesn't mean that there are men that don't exist that don't think more emotionally. I've met some very emotional men. I've met some very logical women. Just because there are exceptions to those rules, however, just because there's an exception to that rule, however, doesn't mean that now the rule doesn't exist. The rule will still exist because most women and most men fall into one or the other in terms of categories. There is this one thing in Hebrew. It's it's called shalom bayit. What is shalom bayit? As a Jew, we grow up learning, especially when we're becoming more of a man and trying to get married, we go to classes. At least some of us do. We go to classes and we speak with a rabbi, and the rabbi will teach us the essence of shalom bayit, which translates roughly to peace in the home, where you feel that both of you are acknowledged at the same time. None of you takes priority over the other. You're equal. That's the whole entire concept of shalom bayit. And given this concept of peace in the home, you want to make sure that your wife is happy. And in order to do that, you need to do things that might even be outside of your comfort zone to make that happen. And the same thing vice versa. Not only that, but compromises need to be met. I've heard Myron Gaines talk so highly about, well, if I'm the breadwinner, then whatever I say goes. And if I want to move, then we're going to move. If I want to do this, then we're going to do this. That would cause a kind of disturbance in the peace of your home. Because even if your wife, your woman, whoever it is in agreement with you in regards to a decision that you made, she might not fully accept it. She'll be like, yeah, okay, I'll go along with it just because she maybe respects and loves you. But if she herself doesn't want to fulfill that thing, either A, you don't do it, or B, you try to find a way to have her see your vision. And then if she sees it and acknowledges that it is a great idea and that, hey, listen, I'll support you, then you go through with it. Because you don't want to ever disturb the peace in your house. It's very easy to just say, yeah, men are responsible for this and women are responsible for this, and this is just how we live. No, women don't deserve less. No, women are not all opportunistic lovers and opportunistic seekers in relationships. It's not all women. And for him to paint women like this only hurts relationships and only hurts people like me, like you, who are trying to get married, who are married, and then we see and hear a concept of a relationship, of what it's supposed to be like, and it's not at all what it's supposed to be like. There's respect, there's love. I know some women that make more money than their man. And yet, even though the woman makes more money than the man, the woman will still come home and do the cooking and the cleaning, and then the man doesn't do any of that. But I've seen those relationships have horrible, horrible, horrible side effects. They're not happy, they don't sleep together. There's a bunch of different negatives that come from things like that because those things are not fully sustainable in the long term. Yeah, when you're young, 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s, it's doable. But as you get older, it becomes a little bit less likely to work out. At least that's my personal opinion because the people that I've grown up with are relatively all normal. We're all average people. I'm average, my wife is average, everyone is average. We're not above or below that average, at least in my personal, humble opinion. Now, people like Myron Gaines, sure, you're making millions of dollars a year, you have all these businesses, you're an entrepreneur, you're making all this money, so you feel like you deserve a woman who's like a 15 out of 10 and that she has to do absolutely XYZ. But Myron doesn't strike me as a guy who's relatively traditional, at least not from anything that I've heard, even based on some of the quotes that I've said here. At the end of the day, I can concede and say, listen, some of the stuff that he said, sure, it could make sense and it could be applied to some people, but the way in which you speak about all women and all women deserve less and women, you're kind of speaking broadly about all women when that's not truly the case. This isn't something that is sustainable for the average regular person living across the world. At the end of the day, people like Myron Gaines, like Andrew Tate, all these people, they're always talking about yeah, well, we should have multiple wives and multiple kids with those wives because we're put on this planet to procreate and we can afford it. And my position is, sure, even if we did this sort of stuff like thousands of years ago and like men had multiple women, multiple wives, and multiple kids from those wives, and maybe it was sort of sustainable back then, it isn't now. Because the true sustainability of a real relationship, and when we talk about a relationship, we're also involving kids here because kids will come into the picture, especially if you're physically active, like with each other. So, when you have one kid from three different women, how are you going to make that work? What if, kid A wants you to put them to sleep that night, but you're with kid B? What's going to happen? You're going to cause peace in the home issues. You're going to have a lack of peace in the home. The kid might get angry with you and upset with you. And while, yes, that sort of stuff can happen in your home with just one wife and only focusing on just one family, yeah, that'll happen. But at least your child will know that they're not being chosen or someone else is being chosen above them. It's really important. The sustainability of a child's life, they want both their parents at home. They need both their parents at home. It's just the way that nature functions. And yeah, nature also functions in the way that men, we're sleazeballs. We're attracted to women. You don't think that just because I'm married, you don't think that sometimes I look at another woman because she's beautiful? It's ingrained in me biologically. I cannot take it out. There's nothing I can do. But there's a difference when you act on those things. There's a difference when you try to promote those things. It's not healthy. It's not going to help any of you or me. So I truly hope that if you are a person that's a fan of them and you listen to them all the time, hopefully you take the things that they say with a really, really, really small grain of salt. Because realistically speaking, unless you're a multimillionaire, that sort of stuff isn't going to work for you. And even if you are a multimillionaire, I highly doubt that sort of stuff is really going to work out for you. And when I say for you, I guess maybe for yourself, like personally, it might work because you're selfish, I guess. But for everyone around you, i.e., all the women and all the kids, it ain't working out for them, buddy. I could tell you that pretty confidently. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope today was better than yesterday, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you, everyone. Take care.